Hey y'all, Just Hawk here, and for those that don't know, a lot of things have changed since we actually recorded our Salty Runback episode 39 back on Tuesday here in the Tier 3 ecosystem. There was a comp ban, a disqualification, and just like a lot of stuff that transpired over the last 24 hours or so that we felt like are needed to be talked about in our episode and could not wait till next week because it was directly pertinent to a lot of the topics. So we're posting that on our channel tonight as its own thing. It's also going to go as a 39.5 in the middle of our next episode. So we'll have timestamps in the episode. If you want to skip that in the episode or whatever, feel free to skip ahead. The whole thing's going to be about an hour and 40 minutes, which is obviously a lot longer than our normal thing. But we feel it's a really important conversation to have, and we want you all to see it. So hope you all enjoy SR episode 39.5.
Unfortunately, this is not Salt Street Bets yet, as we have come in a little bit impromptu to discuss some other news that have happened since we last recorded our episode of Salty Runback. A sixth headline and unprecedented part 3, however you want to put it, but there was some new news that unfortunately broke regarding one of the teams in the NACL qualifiers, that being Morningstar White. Long story short, they have been disqualified, unfortunately, because their top laner, Yusin, is ineligible by the Riot rules to compete because he is here on a student visa, meaning that Morningstar will be eliminated from tournament and disqualified for the rest of the qualifier, and Aporia will be taking their spot in the semifinal matchup against Lotus.
And what a bummer. I mean, yeah, it's
It kind of sucks.
It kind of sucks. It's a shitty situation and an unenviable position for really anyone involved to be in. And I kind of just wish that we weren't here, but we are, and this is the reality that we live in. And I don't know, Graves. I don't know where we like. I feel like we have kind of a docket. Like there's the repercussions of what has happened, what maybe should have happened, or what we wish happened, and then like the soapbox. At least I have a soapbox. So
yeah.
There's 3 parts to kind of tackle here. I don't know where you want to start. Maybe the repercussions of what has happened.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, like the things that I think we are here to discuss in this before we go over to Salt Street Bets, which, by the way, are going to be messed up a little bit because we've included Morningstar White in a couple of our little segments there.
They are, in fact, featured 3 times. Yeah.
We have to discuss what it means for the tournament, why Riot kind of made the decision at this point in time, and the general implications about the rule as a whole, which is a conversation that we've had on this show before, actually, following the Trick or Treat Invitational, where we had Shogo and Akashi do some good work on Summoner's Rift together in our tournament. So I guess we'll start first off in that this sucks for the tournament, for the tournament's competitive integrity, and for anyone who wanted to watch Morningstar White play in the finals. I know specifically the people that are still in the tournament, that being Ole Miss, Winthrop, and Lotus, have all expressed their discontent with not being able to play them because they're a damn good team. And if you're a good team in the qualifiers, you want to play against this other team. Morningstar and Ole Miss both have lost to Morningstar in the past. I know that they were both eager for revenge. And it sucks that because of the situation, that's not going to happen officially.
Yep, it's not going to happen. And I think it's really tough, too, because we honestly, I mean, we saw an outpouring of support from a lot of players in the tournament saying that they wanted to play against this team and that they wanted, hashtag let you should play was a big thing, a little, for our little world here in tier 3, right? And there's some people that dissent and like the ruling as it stands, it makes sense and it's by the book, right? And if you're Riot, if you're Rally Cry, I think making decisions by the book, like for as much, we'll talk about what maybe we wish happened. It makes sense and it is a very valid stance to take, and it has sparked discussion about how decisions such as this will be approached in the future. I guess it's just, yeah, it's a shitty situation. And I think the main repercussion as well, Grape, so a little bit of a rabbit hole, is that so their points have now been redistributed as well, as if every single game that they played was a loss, including That means that Aporia has points for making the semifinals, and in fact will be playing in the semifinals this next weekend. Pulsar has now technically made the quarterfinals, and Ole Miss gets 10 extra points for winning the group, as well as the 4 teams that Morningstar White played against in the open qualifier get 5 points for those games. So that actually has major tournament repercussions aside from like, damn, it sucks that Morningstar White can't play. There are, from my point of view, and Grapes, I know this is something we disagree on, some free points being given out here.
Yeah, I mean the one argument is that they didn't win the games against Morningstar, so they don't deserve the points. The other argument is that if Morningstar weren't in the tournament at all, and we ran with like a 31 team bracket where, you know, every Morningstar coming like game was basically a win. Like that's kind of how Riot is approaching this. It's a situation that existed last summer as well when Cold Hearted got disqualified. That actually got Lit Esports into the quarterfinals, which eventually gave them just barely enough points to actually qualify into the NACL through the promotion tournament. So
Yeah.
that's a big butterfly effect there that has been caused by this similar rule. And
And
given the
theoretically a
fact that
smaller
it's so
butterfly
late in the
effect,
tournament,
though.
yeah, given the fact that it's so late in the tournament this time around, it's going to mean a lot more.
Yeah.
However, take Pulse for example. If for instance the decision was made before the group stage started, they'd be in the same situation. They'd probably be in the quarterfinals anyway. And so at this point in time, like because of the fact, like I think like mathematically in my head at least it makes sense that they do get the points. But I understand where you're coming from in that they didn't earn them because they didn't win a game specifically.
The way I see it, the one, the precedent's here with Lit, so it makes sense. Again, it makes sense, and it is what it is. The precedent though with Lit was that it was caught like immediately after the series, and Lit then still had to earn their way into the promotion tournament, right? After those games. And now everyone still does. So like that does still somewhat apply, but it's so late in the tournament that to me there's way more of a ripple effect with reimbursing points that could not have been accounted for had this been caught early. And I think a big sticking point for me is that this should have been caught earlier. Like if this rule was to be enforced, it should have been enforced from the beginning. And I think that's an oversight. Straight up, it happens, and I would hope that the tournament organizers in the future are able to catch this earlier, or vet players in a way that prevents this situation from happening. But yeah, it's like the ripple effect of the points is a lot more substantial because I think especially Pulse and Aporia are all of a sudden in really decent spots for the promotion tournament when they didn't win those games and they might not have to win anymore, right? And that's where it changes things for me, as opposed to Lit, where it was in group stage,
Well,
and then they still had to run a gauntlet.
They're definitely gonna have to win more. Like
Or
if
they'll have
they
to win
lose,
more to qualify. They'll
if
have
they
to
lose
win more to
out,
qualify. Yeah.
if they either lose out or end in the exact same spot as they did in the first qualifier in the second, they will not make the tournament. I think
Yes,
that's something that we should make clear.
Well,
Pulse is
Aporia could
at
be in
like
the same spot.
60,
Aporia could get to semis and probably be fine.
or I mean, get to quarters, which is like
Right.
where they were
That's
originally
true.
before the
That's
points were
true.
distributed.
So
Because yeah, they're
yeah.
they're like in fourth right now, but with them falling out, that would theoretically mean another team would go into the semifinals, and even if they are tied, that means that the team that with the better finish in the second qualifier actually goes through. So that's an interesting like kind of point of discussion, which I think can transition us to
Yeah.
the idea of like the timeliness of all of this. Now, I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth, whether it be those from Morningstar or on Riot or Rally Cry side or the TOs or anything, but there's a world where the people who were signing up for the event didn't realize that they were breaking the rules when they did so, because it's a little bit counterintuitive when you think of it from a broad standpoint, which we'll get into a little bit later as we talk about the rules and the F1 visas and everything like that. But you could argue that there was a situation, like Morningstar could have been in a situation where they thought to themselves, okay, we have 5 players, they live in America, they're all here legally, they should be allowed to compete.
And they, not only to add an addendum, they live in America with the word visa next to their status as well. Just depends on the type of visa, right? So that,
yeah. And people might misread the rules. They might not understand the rules all the way. there's a little box basically in Rally Cry's application process that says, can you confirm all of your players are quote unquote eligible according to the rules? And it's very easy to just click yes and move on. And it seems like there wasn't any other process on top of that. There probably should be,
Yeah.
because that means that, if this wasn't caught, someone was actively breaking the rules and nobody from Riot was able to determine it.
Yeah.
It took like an anonymous source telling the TOs about the situation that led to this at all. And um, I think this is a long way of saying, in past years there have been more like things in play and requests for verification by tier 3 organizers. I remember specifically, I believe Unified actually had some issues with their different teams in terms of like people having like potentially passports expired or things like that, and that being actually something that resulted in either delays in the event or things having to be gone through, because that's a process that, if this is a rule that you want to enforce, you should be going through. And it just obviously creates so much havoc and disruption because it was caught so late. And you can't blame Riot. I personally don't think you can blame Riot for disqualifying the team and
Yeah.
at this point after learning the information. I think you can criticize the fact that it happened so late
Yeah.
and there wasn't a system in place to achieve that before.
No, I think the decision, given the circumstances, was a reasonable one, even though it's not personally the one that I would have made. But I'm with you every step of the way. The responsibility to enforce the rules should fall to the TO and not the teams, and I think that was kind of what failed here, was that the responsibility did not fall to the TO until it was brought upon them. I mean, again, like you said, this was only investigated because a team. I'm going to use the word snitched. I don't want to like start drama or anything, but I'm going to look into the camera right now and say, you all know who you are. If you're the ones that snitched, here in tier 3, things are hard, and we should be here to build each other up, and we should be here to support each other
I'm
and
not
to
here.
help each other succeed. And I think it reflects poorly on you to snitch. And that's a personal opinion of mine. And again, like I don't, I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed in those that decided that this was the course of action, because it calls into the competitive integrity of the tournament. It just seems soft to be done, given the circumstances that the snitching transpired, and it potentially impacts young people's careers. And I've seen, and this is why I feel so strongly about this whole issue, and why I was tweeting about it and why I've been messaging about it, is that I have seen in my 3 years now in tier 3 a lot of careers end, a lot more careers end than flourish. For every APA, there's a million players that will never see the LCS. For every Rafa, there's a million broadcasters that in the back of their minds, they're saying, will I ever actually make anything of this? And so I don't think we should be taking those opportunities away from each other. And I'm very disappointed that that's the case now. And that's why I feel so strongly about this issue. And yeah, that's something that weighs on me. So with that being said, I think the decision is reasonable, but if this is a rule that we're going to be enforcing, we have to catch it early. We got to avoid these situations. It's just it hurts. It hurts so much to see, because Yusin is a great player, right? And it's tough.
And even from like a narrative standpoint, and I'm going to be selfish here for a second. We spent a lot of time building up the storylines and the narratives of this qualifier tournament. We built up this Morningstar White team. And now it feels like a lot of our work has been uprooted and kind of, changed because of like such a late decision to this being made. And it's personally frustrating to us because, these are people and teams that we've grown to care about. We are trying to get fans engaged to care about them as well, as people who are trying to come in and have success here in our region. And it feels bad that this decision obviously came so late. I think everyone, including Riot and everyone, agrees that they wish that this was solved at an earlier point.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's necessarily useful to continue to beat like a dead horse at this point. So if you're okay with it, Hog, we can transition into
Yeah.
the rule
Let's
itself,
let's move
which is
on.
something that we have discussed at length, both on our social media feeds. If you want to check, I think we both had our own Twitter threads about this specific issue. But currently, the rule that USIN is currently breaking is the fact that you cannot be on an F1 student visa and compete for a team in this league, NACL or NACLQ, that is not your official collegiate program. Now, I think this is like Riot has made steps in the right direction. If you recall, a team like UST was unable to compete in the qualifiers as recently as last spring because Shogo was in violation of that and he was not a quote unquote resident. They actually changed that going into this year. So now
Yeah.
Shogo is able to play on Ole Miss and looks like one of the best players in the goddamn tournament. So clearly things, are willing, are people are willing to change, and maybe these rules are up for change. And I
Yeah.
think they should be, because I think they're fucking stupid, especially at this point in time when the ecosystem looks so different than what it looked like maybe when these rules were originally being put in place. I'll let you talk, Hawk, because
Yeah.
I don't
No,
want
you're
to. I don't
good.
want to take
I mean,
over all this.
I don't have much to say about the rule itself other than I agree. It's dumb. We've had this conversation. I think it's outdated. It's been in place for a long time, which is why, like, again, I think Riot is valid for the way that they've enforced it. But I really wish, what I wish happened is this situation came up and we saw that we're in the semifinals of a tournament with a bright player's future on the line, and Riot in that moment was able to say, "Hey, I think we should make a pivot." That's not what happened, and they have actually told us that they're discussing where to go forward with the rule, which is a good thing. Um, and it's the rule's just outdated. It like there people cite tax reasons, which has then there's been a lot of speculation on Twitter, but people cite tax reasons, which have generally been refuted. It seems
So
people cite reasons of importing people for tier 3. No fucking person is importing people for tier 3. Now that the minimum salary requirement for Challengers League is gone, it's like not a conflict of interest between work and school. Um, and, these players just aren't imports. Yeah, they're not from North America, but they're living here to get an education. We should be building them up. And so that's why I would like to see this rule done away with in its entirety, if possible, to remove any and all restrictions, so long as that the players are, playing with the understanding of like, hey, make sure you do your taxes properly, make sure you're not breaking any laws, that kind of thing.
yeah, I think I agree like almost 100% with you, because it is true. There's a world where you're a 17-year-old, you are living in another country, your parents decide to move to the United States for one reason or another. You're on a student visa and you love playing League of Legends, you're good at it, and you don't have a green card yet specifically, maybe if you're on like you're here via for school or whatever, but maybe you want to, be able to compete and be a part of this ecosystem one way or the other. I think that is a part of our country. That's a part of, how like other sports end up working. And so I don't see a reason why that should be different. I think the rule was likely, installed during a time where tier 3 had a little bit more money in it. There were organizations like 100 Thieves Next that were really putting a lot of infrastructure into that space, and you could potentially see a world where we start importing like Chinese tier 3 players over to NA to like build them up through that pipeline. I can understand why you want restrictions in place for that specifically, but for an F1 visa, like being a student, an international student,
Yeah.
that is not even close to what it is. And there also are instances in the past where other companies, I think Red Bull specifically with their Valorant tournament that happened a couple of months ago, actually changed the ruling, because of some certain situation. And it's possible to actually it's possible to earn money as an international student on an F1, as long as it's not like a salary and it's like a prize or like a non like normal kind of entity of money or something. Our graphics producer Leanne talked to us a little bit about it, and I think that situation specifically um, makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think that is going to be
Yeah.
hopefully something that
And
Riot considers moving forward.
how based is Soul, by the way, for saying if we really couldn't take the money, we donate it all to charity? They just want the opportunity to play. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
and
will
but
I will offer
go
a
ahead. Yeah.
quick question to you, um, because theoretically, like these guys should be allowed to play, obviously, but they're not the same as an import or like a resident player in terms of the LCS. Like if Shogo played in the LCS, I think he would still take up an import slot if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're
So my
right. You're
question
right.
to you is that the NACL currently allows for 1 import per team. If there's like an F1 visa situation, should that be a restriction for potential qualifier teams? Unless maybe the caveat situation is if they are with a school like Ole Miss, for instance, who have multiple players, Shogo and Stray specifically, in those regards. So like, is a team like Lotus or Morningstar able to have maybe just one of these exceptions for somebody on a student visa?
A great question, honestly. Because I feel very strongly that like I don't want to use the word imports when talking about people here on an F1 visa because they're not coming here to play League of Legends, right? And I think maybe that's where some of the nuance is lost on people that are against a rule change is like, oh, like they're going to take, imports like they're traumatized from the LCS, but like they're not here to play League of Legends, guys, okay? And there's not enough money in the ecosystem for that to be viable. Now, 10 years down the line, if we're somehow still here and the money's back, maybe we would need the rule in place again. But that's not the reality we live in right now. And so given that, I would hesitate to enforce a restriction because I don't feel that these players are imports. However,
But they are imports under the LCS. So that's
right,
my
right,
that's
right.
my
So
thought
and so
process.
no, and I'm with you on that. So that's why I don't know. I actually
I
don't know.
personally, I've come to the conclusion on my own as we've been recording this that I think that could be a reasonable
Yeah,
solution.
like I think especially if Riot or whoever wanted to say let's be conservative about this and not make like we're pushing for already some large changes. So if they wanted to build things in place to still add protections and not completely strike down a system in one go, I think that's understandable. And I would not dislike a rule like that and I think I would not feel strongly about it.
Yeah.
So,
Like, theoretically, if you had 3 different students on student visas playing in the qualifiers together, and Dignitas looks at them and says, "Hey, you guys are good. I'm gonna pick you up," they wouldn't be allowed to
right.
technically. If I'm remembering the rules
No, you're
correctly.
right. You're right. Yeah. I mean,
So
I will say I don't even think Dignitas. Now this is where I don't know. I don't know if a player here on a student visa could play in the LCS because that gets into legality requirements regarding full time work, what kind of visa you're on. I'm not an expert on that, but that is actually my understanding. I don't think any of these players would be able to play LCS unless they reapplied for a different type of United States visa to then either be considered an import or if they got their green card be able to play here as a resident. Not going to dive down that rabbit hole, but that's at least my understanding. So yeah,
who you
I don't
got?
know.
Who you got in the semifinals now? Is it Aporia or Lotus?
I got Lotus. I think this team's kind of got some fire to them, and I think stylistically, I think Lotus matches up okay into Aporia. I think Frost Force is really good at neutralizing carry junglers, and I don't think that Sam McKinn is going to punish Aojun as hard as some other teams have been able to. And Lotus's team fighting has been pretty poggers. Aporia has looked a little dead in the water as far as like map play. So
Yeah, I'm confused why Aporia has had so many games in a row where they just kind of do nothing and
yeah,
either win or lose the game
and their
depending
team
on
fighting is
situation.
really good. Like they're a really fundamentally sound team. It just looks like they just do nothing. I don't know. I don't know what's up.
Yeah. I'm a little confused about that, but hopefully we'll see some aggression out of them because I know that they have the players to do so, right? Like we see Music be so aggressive, like
Yeah,
when he's on Rock Bottom, when he's on Supernova. Either way, I feel like that's a good way to cap things off, unless you have any
a
last
little
points.
positive note.
But we're excited for the upcoming tournament. I'm not sure if we are going to release this on its own because we've gone a little bit longer than we might have expected, or we're including it in the current episode that'll be out tomorrow or out on Friday morning. But either way, we'll either conclude the episode here or we'll send you to Salt Street Bets.